August 28, 1963. More than 200,000 Americans gathered on the National Mall for the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. One of them spoke with WGBH Radio.
This is David Edwards at the foot of the Lincoln Memorial. With me is Marlon Brando, the world-renowned movie actor. Mr. Brando, can you tell me why you're here today?
I think, yes, I can tell you why we're here. I can speak for myself as a private citizen. All of us from Hollywood have come as a private citizen representing no group, no political party, and no specific point of view. We're here as Americans to give the full support that we can in every way to the legislation that is now pending before Congress because we believe it to be right.
Would you go beyond that and support the direct action projects undertaken by especially students, Negro and white, in the South today?
I think that any action that is lawfully provided for by the Constitution is something that should be fully supported and should be participated in. Those are my own views.
There was music from Bob Dylan and Joan Baez.
All the foes will rise with the sleep still in their eyes, and they'll jerk from their beds and think they're dreaming. But they'll pinch themselves and squeal, and they'll know that it's for real the hour that the ship comes in. Then they'll raise their hands saying, we'll meet all your demands, but we'll shout from the bow, your days are numbered. And like Pharaoh's tribe, they'll be drowned in the tide, and like Goliath, they'll be conquered.
And the Queen of Gospel, Mahalia Jackson.
Look back and wonder how we made it over. Tell me how we got over. Lord, Lord, Lord. We had a mighty hard time coming over. You know my soul. Look back and wonder how did I make it over.
History remembers Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream. My poor little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream.
But he wasn't the only one to speak that day. Here's John Lewis, then the chairman of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee.
My friends, let us not forget that we are involved in a serious social revolution. But by and large, American politics is dominated by politicians who build their career on immoral compromise and ally themselves an open form of political, economic, and social exploitation. There are exceptions, of course. We salute those. But what political leader can stand up and say, my party is a party of principles? For the party of Kennedy is also the party of Islam. The party of Javits is also the party of Goldwater. Where is our party? Where is the political party that will make it unnecessary to march on Washington?
And labor leader A. Philip Randolph.
We want integrated public schools, but that means we also want federal aid to education, all forms of education. We want a free democratic society dedicated to the political, economic and social advancement of man along moral lines. Now, we know that real freedom will require many changes in the nation's political and social philosophies and institutions. For one thing, we must destroy the notion that Mrs. Murphy's property rights include the right to humiliate me because of the color of my skin.
In the days before the event, Philip Randolph wrote to President John F. Kennedy asking for a meeting with him and the other march leaders before the event. The president would only agree to a post-march meeting. Years later, Kennedy's speechwriter Ted Sorensen explained why. He said the president worried that if march organizers gave him a list of demands he could not meet, the event would, quote, turn into an anti-Kennedy protest. But that post-march meeting, it could not have gone better. John Lewis said the president, quote, stood in the door of the Oval Office, and he greeted each one of us. He was like a beaming, proud father. He was so pleased, so happy that everything had gone so well. But President Kennedy kept a secret from his guests. He was recording their entire conversation. Coming up, you'll hear the hour and 15-minute discussion between President Kennedy, Vice President Lyndon Johnson, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., John Lewis, A. Philip Randolph, Eugene Blake, Whitney Young, Floyd McKissick, Roy Wilkins, and Walter Reuther, following one of the most historic events in American history. Just a few notes before we begin. The audio was recorded with a dictabelt, first installed by President Eisenhower. President Kennedy upgraded the system with manual controls hidden in the furniture so he could choose which conversations to record. Some of the audio may sound muffled or hard to discern. You can read a transcript in this episode's description. Also, you'll hear the acronym FEPC. That was a committee established by President Roosevelt in 1941 to help prevent discrimination against African Americans in defense and government jobs. March leaders wanted that provision included in the legislation that was currently working its way through Congress. We begin now in the Oval Office with NAACP leader Roy Wilkins.
One of the prime factors in turning it into an orderly protest to help our government rather than a protest against our government. I think you'll agree that was psychologically important. And the mood and attitude of the people there today pleased all of us, without exception. They came, I said facetiously over the radio, but so truly. I told them you'd be here, but you never told me until day before yesterday. You didn't tell me until today. When he said, did you know I was coming? Come in and said to me, we have 50 people here from Portland, Oregon, NAACP. And I said, well, you might tell your national office about it. He said, we were so busy getting here. Well, anyway, I think that's the reason the reports that you had indicated it might not be enough. But both our advices and our inward confidence told us that we had a minimum of 100,000 here. And then, of course, if you saw some of the television programs, I don't have to spend a lot of time on this. In fact, I don't have to spend a lot of time at all because, if you permit me to say so, sir, you're politically astute. You realize that people there this afternoon were expressing their deep concern from their home communities, from the grassroots, for the enactment of civil rights legislation, yes, but for a change in the climate that will affect their daily lives. We who come to you occasionally and to the Congress intermittently and say what our people want, and when I say our people, I stress the interracial character of this because I mean all the people who believe in justice and who feel that the government should function to bring about justice. Those of us who come to you and say our people want this and we want that, we think so and so ought to be done. Understandably, you might feel at times that this is a program dreamed up by the leaders, or at least pushed by them for some motive of their own, with hopes that they have backing. We think today's demonstration, if it did nothing else, and I think this was the principal thing it did, showed that people back home, from the small towns, the big cities, the working people, men who gave up 2 days' pay, 3 days' pay, paid $30 and $40 and $50 and $100, who flew from Los Angeles to $300 round trip to come here. It means that they, not Martin Luther King or Roy Wilkins or Whitney M or Walter Reuther, have dreamed up this civil rights business. They feel it in their hearts enough to come here and show by their presence to you and to the Congress what they hope their government will do. It fell to my lot, sir, in this afternoon of superlative oratory, to be the one to deal rather pedantically and pedestrianly with the hard business of legislation. And the other gentlemen were free to soar into the wild blue yonder, and they did so soar. But I dealt with the legislation, and of course, this must be a concern to you. We would like to see included in your package, which is now being considered by the House Judiciary Committee, an FEPC bill for the reasons that all of us outlined in all of our speeches, more eloquently by Walter and by Philip Randolph, because they're so familiar with the labor field. But all of us realize that the Negro is terribly underemployed. And while we do not hope and do not believe that an FEPC bill will correct all of his, it will help to relieve some of the tension, it will open up some opportunities, and best of all, it will arouse a hope that if they do qualify, race, religion, and nationality will not act to bar them from the job. H.R. 405 has been reported by the House Education and Labor Committee and has been given to Mr. Seller and the House Judiciary Committee. And Mr. Seller has said that if possible, he would include it and it would be given every consideration. We have been assured that in the subcommittee of the Judiciary Committee in the House, there are now 6 votes out of the 11, which would include an FEPC bill in the package as reported out to the floor, and which would include also the controversial Part 3 language from the 1957 bill, which was not included, of course, in that bill. And today, when we talked this morning with Majority Leader McCormick, he reminded us that he had voted for Part 3 in 1957, as I believe, sir, indeed you did also. And he reminded us also that the House had passed an FEPC bill on at least 2 occasions. And he said that he felt that he could assure us, if the committee reported these 2 items as parts of the package, that they would pass the House. This means that the House will be given an opportunity to pass upon it, and in his opinion, it would pass. He's a veteran of the House, you don't have to dwell on that. And it would mean that the issue would then be presented to the Senate. And we believe that both of these houses ought to be given the opportunity to say no on these matters. We do not believe, we do not share the apprehension of some people that to include these 2 items would do damage to the chances of the rest of the bill. Now, Mr. Dirksen was as frank as he has been with you. He told us he would support all of your package except Title II. And he told us there was one little word there, and Mr. Dirksen is very good with words. He said, I have not changed my opinion as yet. I still have the opinion. I don't think there was any promise there that he might change his mind. He did say his mind was closed. They do always. Thank you. He did say his mind wasn't closed. this is really the sum total of our conferences with the congressional leaders. Mr. Mansfield was his usual careful and courteous self, restricting himself to his duties as majority leader and being careful not to infringe upon anything else. He did imply on a couple of occasions that his personal opinion might not always agree with some of the official acts that he performed. But nowhere did we get, I think, gentlemen, you correct me, nowhere did we get a cold shoulder on this matter, nor even political machine-like consideration, Mr. President. So we are encouraged to believe, sir, that if the right word could go to the right people who seem receptive to the strengthening measures that we urge, at least they would pass the House. This would be a great encouragement, would throw the matter straight into the lap of the Senate. Now, there isn't any necessity for going any other detail, Mr. President. We are in school desegregation, which occupies a lot of our attention. Public accommodations, we take for granted that we'll get something on it. It's spoken of as controversial, but that means only that it's emotional, we feel. It seems to us incontrovertible that the citizens of the United States must be accorded this right to go freely and to enjoy public accommodation. On school desegregation, there is a limitation on the authority of the Attorney General in the present draft. And he is empowered to proceed in cases where the complainants are indigent. First place, you must have complainants. The second place, you must be indigent. We feel that if nothing else is done in this section, that it's not strengthened in any other way, at least that limitation ought to be removed. And the Attorney General ought to be empowered to proceed on his own recognition of the situation, which is that 9 years have passed and many school districts have not acted. And it ought to be a prima facie case for the Attorney General of the United States to proceed and know whether he got a complaint or not, whether it came from a rich family or not. There are no rich people, but a well-to-do family or a poor family. And I think if I've summarized it, if you have any other suggestions that the President might, that I omitted, I'll be happy to hear you.
That was NAACP Executive Director Roy Wilkins, speaking with civil rights leaders and President Kennedy in the Oval Office. Next, you'll hear from Philip Randolph, Negro American Labor Council President.
Well, Mr. President, we also want to supplement the statement made by Mr. Wilkins, who is an expert on the legislative situation, that emphasis needs to be placed on the inclusion of the Fair Employment Practice Bill in the package that you presented to the Congress. You would need the presidential backing, presidential imprimatur, in order for it to receive the recognition that it deserves. This matter of fair employment, we know, must also be linked up with full employment. And we know also that full employment is conditioned by the rate of economic growth. But we also feel that there needs to be today, because of the incredible position of the Negro worker, whose rate of unemployment is 2.5 times that of the white, and who represent a disproportionately large number in the so-called hardcore of unemployment in this country because of being the first fired and the last hired. There seems to us that something ought to be done to help them
get jobs now. For instance, we have thousands of Negro workers who can't even read and are not in the position to even acquire skills and training, even though we know that today in the job market, you are not going to be able to sell muscle power anymore to any great extent because of the march of science, technology, industrialism, and automation. Now, inasmuch as the Negro worker is a handicap in selling his labor power into the national job market because of racial bias and because of lack of skills, we feel that some massive public works ought to be developed. Unless, if that isn't done, they're going to be thrown on relief. Because as we look at the problem, it just seems almost insoluble when you have a society which is becoming increasingly mechanized and automated, where skills and training are indispensable, and you have hundreds of thousands and millions of people that can't even be trained because of the lack of the fundamental equipment of being able to read. Well, now, therefore, we need some crash, massive training program, but even this is not going to reach a large segment of the black workforce. In addition to that, and I think that we talked about it some time ago in some of the conferences here, the teenagers constitute a grave problem because they're dropping out of school. It is estimated that 75% of Negroes now in school will not graduate, will not finish high school. And yet, a high school graduate is necessary to be included in a apprenticeship training program, so that if they're dropping out of school and they're incapable of going into apprenticeship training programs to get training, where are we going? We're up against a terrific problem. And not only are they dropping out of school and are unemployed, but they're running out of hope. And I come up against the young teenagers from time to time, and I may suggest to you that they present almost an alarming problem because they have no faith in anybody's life. They have no faith in even Negro leadership. They have no faith in God. They have no faith in the government. In other words, they believe that the hand of society is against them. And this is the situation that you find with respect to Negro youth in the various centers of the country. We see it. The only way to meet this situation is to compel them to take training. To acquire some kind of skill in order that they may be able to play their role in this automated society. And I know that the trade union people don't want to talk about too much of a training program with respect to that is getting skills and so forth, because the old doctrine of a long-term period for the acquisition of skills still obtains in the autonomous unions today. I don't know how sound it is. I ought to question a policy which requires a boy to spend 5 years to become a plumber, but it only takes 4 years to become a doctor. This is a situation that seems incredible, but nevertheless, that's the position, and it's going to be difficult to change the position of the powerful trade craft union law. But this is one that we need to meet, and I hope
we have the first extensive and comprehensive program for the training of teenagers in a trade that we've ever had. As a matter of fact, I've never known two Negroes to be given apprenticeships in anything. Before the program was initiated by Reverend Dr. Alex Wood Jr., who was the president of the Central Body there in New York. Now, I had the opportunity to talk with the Vice President Johnson and the Secretary of Labor Wood here with Roy Wilkins and Whitney M and a number of others. And I'm amazed at the work that is being done here. And I want to say that progress is being made. There's no doubt about that. Of course, from the point of view of the crisis that we're in, some way has got to be found to step up the progress, or fix the progress is the problem. And this is our most explosive question. To take the matter of accommodations, public accommodations, and this matter of jobs, they represent the politics. They represent the dynamite in our various communities. And I know all we can do is to continue to repeat it. And we certainly have the greatest appreciation in the world for the sympathetic attitude that the President has, and the Vice President, and also Secretary of Labor, were. If we had had this attitude, say, 2 years ago, we would be a long way forward. But this we didn't have. But now, I think we're on our way, but we need to find some kind of device, some kind of technique, some kind of tactic and strategy that will enable us to telescope certain areas of craft training and craft education so that we may be able to make a plumber and make an electrician, make a bricklayer and make a carpenter in much less time than is now required to produce these people.
That was Philip Randolph, Negro American Labor Council President, speaking with fellow civil rights leaders and President Kennedy.
Well, we might go into a little discussion of the legislation and how it stands and what we get. Well, I'd like to say just two things. First of all, I think we're all very appreciative of the great courage that you have demonstrated in presenting the most comprehensive civil rights bill that any president has ever recommended. We fully appreciate that. We feel very strongly that the FEPC thing is a very critical element of the whole total effort because it ties into the kind of a house a Negro family can have, and the kind of a house they have in the kind of a neighborhood, and therefore the kind of school. And a job is really basic, and this is why we take FEPC. On the Title III item, we believe that we can get that through the subcommittee. We've been working very closely with Matthew Zeller in this committee, and John McCormick indicates that he believes, and we didn't have to twist this out there, he said this quite freely and openly, he believes that a bill that contains both FEPC, that is your original proposal, plus FEPC and plus Title III, would clear the house. And obviously, if we could get that kind of legislation through, we'd be in the strongest possible position to start from the strongest point in terms of the Senate. Now, we have put together this march on Washington. If it just been a march, then I think some people might have said, well, this effort, the money and the time and the energy went into that, just a one-day proposition could not be justified. In the process, we've put together the broadest working legislative coalition we've ever had. And we're going to work not only on the Hill, but we're going to be able to mobilize the grassroots support back home in critical congressional districts where a fellow has to be persuaded. There's no use working on Phil Hart or people like Paul Douglas. We know where they are. We've got to work in the Midwest where people, where their thing that I think will come out of this, as I said today in my speech, after we get the legislation, that only means we've got a set of tools to work with. It doesn't mean that automatically this problem is resolved. And what we have to do is develop a broad coalition of men of goodwill in every community where we've got to implement this program. And I think that this is what this march has done. It's brought into being an active, functioning coalition around this central question of equality of opportunity and first-class citizenship. And I think if we reflect this by practical work in each community, we can mobilize the community, we can mobilize the men of goodwill, and we can search for answers in the light of reason by rational, responsible action. Because if we fail, then the vacuum that we create for our failure is be filled by the apostles of hatred, and reason is going to yield to riot, and brotherhood is going to yield to bitterness and bloodshed. So I think that this is really a more significant aspect of what we're doing. We have put together the kind of coalition that can be meaningful at the community level across this country after we get the legislation, and it can be effectively mobilizing support for the legislation.
That was labor leader Walter Reuther. Next, the men continue their conversation with President Kennedy. They focus on the proposed legislation, and they break down the vote count.
Let me just say a word about legislation. There's one thing that this question of education, we've had this juvenile program, as you know, with your a lot. The attorney general was up there. He was out in Chicago the other day. He was shocked by some of the Chicago class, the leaving of the school, back and better teachers up to home, and visiting by the teachers at the home, and they don't study, and the children won't study unless they stay home, regardless of what their color or their income level is. Now, isn't it possible for the Negro community to take the leaders? Maybe major emphasis upon the responsibility of these families, if they're split and all the rest of the problems they have, on educating their children. Now, in my opinion, the Jewish community, which suffered a good deal, the discrimination was the great effort they made, which I think has made them influential, was an education of their children, and therefore they've been able to establish a strong position for themselves. This has nothing to do with what you've been talking about, but it seems to me with all the influence which all you gentlemen have in the Negro community, if we could decide that there's nothing that I can do about the education they've lost. They really have to concentrate. But I think the Jewish community is down educating their children, making their children study, making them stay in school and all the rest. And all the ministers and all the rest to really make that a major effort in the coming months.
What is the big done, Mr. Stu?
This was one of the major concerns here in the third part of my speech was the idea. One of the real problems, of course, the length of appropriation was a small appropriation and was touched a few places, but one of the big problems that Senator said, which has been almost traditional, is that when the federal government has brought its resources into the local community, excluding those two places in New York, almost exclusively money has gone to white agencies and corporations that were established for the purposes of receiving these funds and administering the program. And almost invariably the established Negro agencies concerned about the Negroes and whether it's Negro administration, has never gotten any of it. Now, this means we still have to scrap with little bits we get from community chests and from other Negroes to do this job. I think you could give a big help to us if you pass your word out, Ms. Christmas' word, some other people. And a number of these programs, conscious effort ought to be made to see if this cannot be followed through, established responsible leadership, Negro leadership organization, to let them do this job. We will do this, but the problem is there is such, at this moment, such hopelessness, that we need a tangible, visible, massive commitment of a massive
treatment. This active area is 13% of the population of unemployed like the Negro. You have a shooting revolution. This thing is serious, and I think we have to develop the concept of a compressed area that's smaller than, say, a city or a community. Same kind of principle. You were asking also about the existing institutions, particularly, I think, of the ministers who have such an effect on the life.
I just thought that aside from all the things we can do in the government, and that we can get the Negro community regard the education of their children as really the best way out. And that's not the Southern problem or the discrimination, but just making education the same way as I say the Jewish community and to a degree.
President, I almost tied in with the FEPC 20 years ago. We had Negro college graduates driving garbage trucks in Pasadena, California. He had to blame the younger brother for that. I mean, he has no insight. You've got to move the openings. They always are telling us we were working on the upgrading, and they were telling us they weren't anyone qualified and so on. And the two things just seem to be adequate. I think this will be done if you can get the openings, the assurance of openings. Because I think the Negro community will push as hard as anybody else to educate and get in if it isn't that built-in discouragement.
Well, let's talk a little about the, I know you may not get to something on the same thing. We are very familiar with this program as it relates to North Carolina. The program that represents Coolhouse Farm, the conservation crop. But we have a program similar to this in North Carolina, taught by the NAACP and CORE 2 years, which time we had kids being trained on our horns for a number of years and placed some 200 of them in integrated job positions. But we still have a great amount of difficulties because this is not an isolated problem. This is part of a total problem. In that, you can send children to school, but if their parents have not been educated, the child, by the time it reaches the 6th grade, can't communicate with his parents most of the time because the parents only finish 4th. You have an additional problem is that the parents are not able to stay home to work. I mean, they have to work, get out doing some kind of work, and there's a lack of parental control in many of the homes. We've also had volunteer programs in training children to just be equipped to transfer to an integrated school, which is a tremendous problem in draining the resources of carrying on tutors for 26 months. Over a period of time, 26 months, to get kids ready to go to an integrated school because they're going to move so fast. We've been engaged in this program of education. We just concluded a workshop sponsored by, in Durham, North Carolina, sponsored by NAACP, CORE, SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee together, just completed a direct action workshop. But in the direct action workshop, mind you, and that's one of the values of the Civil Rights Organization, in the direct action, much emphasis was put on training and vocational training and attending the training schools and certain qualifications. But nevertheless, public accommodations fit entirely into this because without the Public Accommodations Act in the South, you have killed the Negro's child's chance to aspire. He doesn't aspire to be anything. He believes he's not. So these problems are interrelated and intertwined.
One other comment on this point. I think we'd agree with Mr. Young, and there would be more resources going into the sector that you mentioned that's so important. I think some of the religious groups have resources we have never been at the disposal of the community and now come. But I'd like to reiterate the point that you made, that is, city after city, you look, for example, at the public school system, the schools in the ghetto are getting the worst teachers very frequently. The budgets allocated for those schools on a library basis, on a teacher basis, right down the line is lower than the budgets in white
Floyd McKissick, chairman of the Congress of Racial Equality, and other civil rights leaders speaking about the pending legislation before Congress. Again, the matter of the FEPC is brought up. Next, President Kennedy breaks down the votes and how the FEPC impacts them. He is followed by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Walter Reuther, among others.
Well, let me just say a word about this problem about FEPC, because, in fact, I follow this legislation because we have very difficulty. We just made a count of how our votes look, and we figure now we have 144 Democrats right, and the other 22 wrong 90. Now, of the 22, we think it's probably possible, the doubtful, that we might get 2/3 would be right. So if you add that up, say you get 158. 158.
Mr. President, can I ask you, speaking of the ones on the present administration, that's all of FEPC.
Now, that's not big. That's 158. That means that to pass administration bills in the judiciary board of FEPC, we need 60 Republicans. And to get out the job, so I have a list here. I know Brian's going through it. I'll just go through it very quickly. This is just Democratic side. Alabama, of course, none. Alaska, 1. Arizona, we got 1 sure or 1 doubt. Arkansas, nothing. California, all the Democrats are right. Colorado, we got all the Democrats are right. Connecticut, all the Democrats are right. Delaware, right. Florida, all wrong, exception of Tampa. Georgia, all wrong. Hawaii, both right. Idaho, both right. Illinois.
John F. Kennedy Library, President's Office Files. Presidential Recordings Collection. Tape 108, Reel 2. 86 seconds of this tape have been excised for reasons of national security, though one excision has been indicated. For additional information, see recording log number 108.
California, all the Democrats are right. Colorado, we got all the Democrats are right. Connecticut, all the Democrats are right. Delaware, right. Florida, all wrong, exception of Tampa. Georgia, all wrong. Hawaii, both right. Idaho, both right. Illinois, we got all Cook County is right. And Ray, Price, and Shipley, the other 3, they're all right. Illinois, Indiana, we got 1 doubtful. The 3 Democrats are right. Iowa, 1 Democrat is right. Kansas, no Democrats. Kentucky, probably all wrong except 1. You might get 1 vote out of Kentucky Democrat. Louisiana, probably all wrong. We might get Boggs. Maryland, all the Democrats are right. Massachusetts, all the Democrats are right. Michigan, we got 2. We got Griffith and Lipinski. I don't know about them. We're putting them down. We have them. They could be had. We got Minnesota, all Democrats right. Mississippi, we get passed over. And Missouri, we've got the Cannon doubtful. Probably will get because I don't know. Powell doubtful. Eichmann wrong. Jones wrong. 3 other Democrats right. Montana Olson right. Nebraska, no Democrats. Nevada, barely doubt. I don't know what's going to happen today. We might be able to get him. New Jersey, all Democrats are right. New Mexico, all Democrats are right. New York, all Democrats are right. North Carolina, all the Democrats are wrong. Ohio, we got a mix. We got half of them right, a couple of them are wrong. Oklahoma, Albert Edmondson right, but John wrong, and Steve Wish and Duff, I think probably
Texas, Gonzalez right. Everybody else either doubtful or wrong. The three doubtful. Jack Brooks, and Thomas, Thunberg. Thunberg. Very well with that. Virginia, all wrong. Washington, right. West Virginia, all right, except Slack, doubtful. Wisconsin, everybody right. But that's the Democrat. That means it gets 60 Republican. That means really Charles Congressman Howe has to support the administration bill. And the leader fellow from Ohio, who's on the judiciary ranking Republican, is a very influential fellow. McClintock, but he has to vote with us. Then I think we're trying to get these six. Now, we've been informed that they won't get it for FEPC, this kind of Republican vote. Now, that may be wrong, maybe they'll change, but that's the kind of votes we have to get. We have to go from 100, we only got 158 to 160 Democrats. We got almost 100 wrong, 160 right, 60 Republicans. That's hard to get.
Well, the Republicans building their major opposition, certainly this is Gerson, around public accommodation.
Right.
It's possible that you can maintain all the support that you get for the administration's bill and build on top of that if you include these other two elements in the House. I mean,
let me just go down to the Senate. This is on the Civil Rights Bill, our Civil Rights Bill. They figure right 48, wrong 44, possibly. That's pretty good. That's it after cloture has been established. We figure that, I'll just go through it very briefly. Al, possible. Anderson, possible. Barker, yeah, good. Guy, good. Bell, good. Brewster, good. Burke, good. Case, good. Church, good. Clark, good. Cooper, good. Dodd, good. Dominic, good. Douglas, good. Engel, good. Fong, good. Green, good. Hockey, good. Inouye, Jackson, Javits, Keating, Kennedy, Kegel, Waller, Missouri, Magnuson, Mansfield, McCarthy, McGee, McGovern, McIntyre, McNamara, Metcalf, Crowley 33, but maybe that might change. Crowley. Robertson of Virginia, no, 34. Watson of 35. Simpson of Wyoming, 36. Mathis, 37. Smith, Mrs. Smith, Poplar of Maine. Spartan, 38. Stennis, 39. Talmadge, 40. Thurman, 41. Tower, 42. Williams, Delaware, 43. And Young, North Dakota, 44. Well, now maybe you change 2 or 3 of those. This is the I'm in doubt. We got 8 who's possibly, which are include Allen, Anderson, Bond, Wall. Wall is Tennessee. That's very doubtful. Loush is doubtful. Smith of Maine, possibly. Yeah, she's not doubtful. Saul is still outside agree with all the rest of them. I don't know. The immediate tactical problem that we're faced with is this. There is a feeling, there's no need of getting into whether it's founded well or not. There is a feeling on the part of the most active people who are working on the legislative front on the civil rights thing that it is possible to get through Andy Zeller's committee your bill plus FEPC and the strengthened Title III, and that the only thing that stands in the way, I'm stating the problem as put to us, the only thing that stands in the way of that is that the administration, people who represent your point of view, are fearful that that will further complicate the bill. It is our evaluation that this will improve our chances. And what John McCormick said today reinforces our conclusion. McCormick said to us that he thought that he could get through your bill plus FEPC and strengthen Title III. John McCormick can only get to that. You don't get 160 votes. Therefore, it really comes down to what votes. I can get 60 votes. Republican votes down. Why can't we get on that? This week indicated, and I don't want to quote it because he's essential to us, and therefore he indicated to the Department of Justice this week, in which I looked outside with him, that he thought he could vote for our bill. Finally, maybe you have to do some certain modification, but anyway, that he could vote for it. He's the key fellow. He won't vote for it unless he's got the green light out. I mean, it's very inflammatory. My guess is if we get him, we'll get the 60 Republicans. On the other hand, he said, if I wanted to beat your bill, he said 2 days ago, I put FEPC in. He said, and I vote for it, and we'll never pass it in the House. Now, I don't know. That may be right, it may be wrong. I think the only thing I would say is, we've got another few days here. Let's just count them. I mean, we just got an awful beating where everybody counted wrong, including John McCormick on Farm 8. There's no sense in having John McCormick tell you pass something. We need 160 votes, we need 217. Finally, it's down, well, we get 60 Republicans. Now, if we get 60 Republicans, FEPC, on par, 1 million %. 1 million %. We're still going to lose anyway. We might as well have FEPC in there, give them all a chance to get the whole thing. If we get our fellows together with Randolph Brown, that's right. I don't know what they fellows. Jimmy Roosevelt been talking to us, Castor Meyer, Wisconsin, and others. But I've seen all those fellows. The Vice President's seen them a lot longer than I have. You get it all within the Senate, Joe Clark, and you finally end up with 18, 20 votes in the Senate or something. So it may be that we can get 60 Republicans. Now, let's all start off with that assumption. We have to get 60 Republicans to get this bill done. If we can get McClellan to go ahead and we can put FEPC on par. Yeah, I know. On the other hand, I don't want the whole thing voted down on the House. We understand. But it may be that if anybody will vote for public accommodation, they'll vote for FEPC. I don't know. I think we'd have to find out how they would. Obviously, we'd be better off if we had FEPC in there. You're going to have to peel something off in the Senate. I don't know. Maybe we're not going to get into the Senate if we can't get cloture. That's a pretty tough account. You'd be better off to get more in the bill, and you'd be able to make some adjustments and probably pick up some votes. So I would rather have FEPC. We're going to have to do it sooner next year, the year after. We're going to do it now. So it's really just a question. I think we've got to try to get the bill by, and if we can get 60 Republicans close to it for FEPC, then I'm all that. And if that's cold, then we'll be glad to stay in touch with you. It's a head count, really, job that we now have.
I think the same thing applies to the Title III in the old bill, extending the power of the Attorney General. Is that as much opposition to that as FEPC? Well,
they concentrated their attention to, I don't know that, I But I think if we can just stay in touch, and this thing isn't going to be decided now, at least till beginning next week, we ought to come down. How sooner or later, we've got to know what Republicans will do.
Yes. Wouldn't you say that Mr. Howard more or less committed himself to
Part of the Oval Office meeting on August 28, 1963, one of the most historic days in American history. Coming up next time on Presidential Recordings, the March on Washington, A. Philip Randolph calls for a crusade with President Kennedy as its leader. Vice President Johnson explains the political realities of dealing with Congress. And the group discusses the rights of African Americans in the military to protest. Our thanks to the John F. Kennedy Presidential Library and Museum, the Richard Nixon Presidential Library and Museum, the University of Virginia Miller Center, and WGBH Boston.